I really love both your guys' families, and so grateful for both of them. Ed, we were chatting a little bit off air, and we're chatting about your PhD, but we'll get there. So you were Affie's boy, and then played SA schools, and then spent
Everybody
3 years
has
in
their
the Bulls.
problems,
Yeah, well, look, you got an Affie's boy and on screen. So I went to I was down the road at St John's College. We only produced one Springbok rugby player, Mr. Onam Kabani. But hey, we'll claim him. And then you spent 3 years in the Bulls, played the Sharks for a bit, and then spent some time in France. Is that right?
Yeah, Dab, sorry. I mean, it's amazing how you learn things. I never knew that St John's played rugby, so it's actually quite nice.
Look, we weren't very good, but we played.
It's very nice. So matriculated at Affie's, went to Turkey's, signed a contract with the Bulls for 3 years, and then, as you said, I came to Durban, where my life started, because this is where I met Siri. We got married 2003. I played at the Sharks from 2000 to 2005, and then initially went over to France for 6 months, just for like a little sabbatical. And 8 years later, we moved back with 3 kids, so and naturalized French and the whole story. So yeah, very blessed. Had an unbelievable career. I think there's a difference. Barry's and myself both played professionally, but I think I got paid to play rugby. I was never as professional as the other oaks, and I think that's I was a little bit more old school. But it was such a blessing, and such a privilege to get paid for playing the sport that you love.
Amazing. And then you got back and thought maybe you would just further your education. But how's this? You did a doctorate on the transformation of sport in South Africa.
Yeah, it sounds better than it is. Like, let's be honest. If you look at the screen, you can see why one of us never had to stop studying, because the looks are, left it up in the trick. But I think it's actually crazy. It's one thing I've learned through doing the PhD is you don't have to be clever to get degrees. You just got to be persistent. So when I came back from overseas and did the transition between a player and retirement, because sports, unlike any other industries, you actually retire at the age of 30, 32, 34 if you're lucky. And they just 32 are retired, and then your life starts. You've got a wife and kids, and you've got to provide, and it's quite a scary time, and that's why a lot of players are, get mental health is a huge thing amongst professional rugby player, professional sportsmen, and everyone that retires. And I wanted to make sense of what the environment is, because we lived overseas for 8 years, and we chose to come back to South Africa, which is a different story. I'll tell you about that, but that's also extremely important event in our lives. But I never actually thought that I'd come back into sport after retiring as a player. But I initially came into the Sharks on a 3-month just consulting business, a consulting contract, as I had we had our own company, a fund management company, and financial planning, and I wanted to make sense of what's happening in South African rugby with transformation and commercial sport, and to see if I can build a model that makes professional sport commercially viable. So I did a master's in that, and then at the end of the master's degree, I realized that we only just hit the top of the iceberg, and that's why I went into the PhD. So it wasn't really trying to be clever. It was just more pushed me into that area because it's something that I was really passionate about. And still is.
That's brilliant. Sure. So good.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry, yourself, you played down here at the Sharks for a little while, and then shot over to Wales and spent most of your career over there, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, I went to school across the railway line from Ed. So I was at Pretoria Boys, and then
you guys played at the same time.
Transvaal, and then. No, just that would be nice. That would be a compliment to me. Thanks, Tubbsy. No, I'm a few years ahead, A few years ahead.
Brilliant.
One or two years ahead.
But the result would have been the same, Dub.
Yeah.
100%, maybe. Listen, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, us Soties couldn't handle playing across the railway line. That was a factor. Yeah, so I played for the Lions a bit. Then I moved down here, played for the Sharks, a very short stint with the Sharks, and then I went overseas. And when I went overseas, it was sort of just, you know, I was in the game when it turned professional in 96. So when I went overseas in 97, 98, it wasn't really professionalism as we know today. It was sort of, guys were still trying to find their way in what does it mean to be a professional rugby player. So when I arrived at Pontypridd, it was still a very sort of semi-professional setup. A lot of guys were still working. And then, yeah, played a bit there, played in England a little bit, and ended up retiring quite young, actually. It was more just I started studying, and the studies and the playing couldn't really gel together. So I had to give up one. I chose to give up the playing. And and then obviously stayed there, retired, and eventually ended up coming back to South Africa via London, Hong Kong.
Sure. Now, both you guys have touched on it. I think for a professional sportsman, your career is so short unless you're a golfer. I think golfers seem to go on forever. But what is that transition like? So you come out of sport, you've thrown your life at that thing for 10, 15 years max, and then somehow you've got to, like you say, transition into a new career. If you're not doing coaching badges or those kind of things, you're actually studying something to go further. What's it like coming out of that season of, hey, I've given my life to this thing, and now all of a sudden are you thinking about that all the time as you're playing, or is it a sort of towards the last 2 or 3 years of your career, think, hey, where do I go from here?
Who do you want to go first, Dad?
I think jump in, and then Grace can go.
Okay, listen, it's an extremely unsettling time, because remember, if you take a professional rugby player that's been at the highest level for a period of between 5 and 10 years, like there's a lot of pride involved, and I think that's a huge thing, and so if you mix pride and fear, you get a little bit of the sentiment that a rugby player gets towards his end of his career, because you got the pride of what you've achieved, but it's coming to an end, and you got the fear of what's going to happen, because like even if you did study at varsity, you're 10 years behind the guys who graduated when you were 21, so like you really got to, if you didn't set yourself up, you got to start at the bottom. And I think there's a lot of anxiety that comes to play, and a lot of guys because when it's good in sport, it's really good. You get paid disproportional salaries compared to people your age, and you go on this accelerated path to wealth and stardom. That's actually unnatural, so like when that comes to end, it literally ends from, if a guy retires retires on the 31st of October and the 1st of November, it's done. The salary's gone. There's no even if you get turned down, you go from 100 to 0 in literally a day. So it's an extremely tough time. It's something that we're also trying to address, and I think Burries is actually better positioned, because he is unbelievably valuable to the Sharks and the Sharks cause in terms of how he plays a role in the structure for us.
I think, what Dubsy, it is, like Ed said, I think I'm just going to echo a lot of what he said, but the reality is this for me is that I think everything starts out from the beginning with an expectation, and I think that's where the problem starts. I think the transition should be a lot simpler, but a lot of the guys step into the space, and it was more recently when it became completely professional, they step into the space with an idea that rugby's a career, and rugby's not a career, because we're all going to retire when we're 75, and that's a career, whatever you do until you're 75. Rugby is a very short job that you have, and you have to embrace it like that. And that's where the challenge is. The expectation on the patients. The back edge, and you're all about why I did a PhD. The reality is he did a PhD, he wants to see change. And that's the important part here. So he wants to see change in South African rugby particularly, but in South Africa as a country. Now, part of that he wants to see is he wants to see young guys stepping into what is a very lucrative time in their life and be able to set themselves up for what's going to be even better once they step out of this job of rugby. And I think that's why Ed approached me to get involved, because
Brilliant.
he sees that need in rugby, and that's the transition that needs to happen. But it's a very tough transition. It's mentally, it takes someone from 0 to 0 overnight. It is tough.
That's brilliant. And then, Ed, maybe we can jump in straight away there to the RC Color theme or brand or campaign that we launched as a theme for church this year. And you guys at the Sharks loved the theme, so I started doing some stuff with our creative team and seeing how we can brand and move forward with that theme. And we love it because we've always thought that the RC Color theme was bigger than just a church reality. So tell us a little bit about how the RC Color dream started, and I suppose that lines up with what Andre's saying about seeing a bigger picture for the future of sport in our nation and looking after the sports people.
Yeah, Dubs, and I mean, it's such a privilege to be on this platform to speak about it, because this is where RC Color originated. I mean, we were sitting in church on the Linc campus in Belito. My wife and myself, we were always five rows from the back, just in front of we always have our same seat. And when they were talking about RC Color and the campaign, it just resonates with me, because I think it's extremely important to the space where sport in South Africa finds itself in. We've got, if you take transformation, I mean, transformation is such a topical discussion point in South Africa, and especially in sport, because sport's such a public thing. I mean, look at the World Cup last year with Sia and that team that did unbelievably well for us, But the way transformation has been portrayed is it's a punitive, if you don't transform, there's punitive measures. You're going to get this, or this is going to get taken away, And that was the struggles that I've always had, first of all, as a rugby player, and secondly, as an administrator, of how do you take transformation from a punitive thing to a progressive, you understand, from punitive to progressive. So what is that challenge? What does it look like? And I think RC Color just actually brought everything together, because it's not, it actually spoke to the problem and maybe the solution at the same time, And I think Bill and Tess and Barry's are much better with words than I am. But,
arguable.
No. But I just saw such a fit for South Africa and a dream. And sometimes you study, and I mean, I wrote, actually for my PhD, I read 330 journals, books, and articles on transformation and sports and all these things. And that 20 minutes in church summed it all up for me, what RC is and what RC Color is. And, then we started working together with Linc, and we just felt this fire burning inside of us. And when I spoke to our creatives, I think part of RC Color is that we embrace diversity. And within diversity, you can find a home, and within diversity, you can find your purpose. And I think that's what we got in RC Color. And we presented it to our players overseas. And initially they thought but hang on, we're such a happy, diverse team. Why do you want to bring color in it? And I said to them, no, guys, it's not that type of color. It's the color inside of us. It's the color. It's the way we deal with each other. It's the rules of engagement in our society. It's like celebrating those little differences that we have. That's okay to be different. We can't always be.
Well, that's brilliant. I think for us as a theme, or for a church, or won't be a campaign for us too. I think what you guys have actually done in embracing that brand or campaign or lifestyle, I think for us will become a lifestyle too. So definitely a God thing, and just amazing to see. We've always dreamed of business and local church and community and sport all working together as a nation, and it's been an absolute pleasure to watch that unfold and see where it goes. It's actually quite an exciting little adventure that we're on there. So that's awesome. All right, so both you guys are leading organizations. You're both leading through probably the most uncertain time in history, and it's amazing because we've been chatting to a few guys, and when you lead through uncertainty, there's always someone you can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, help us out here." We're actually in a season where there's no one to phone. I love the way John Marcoma put it. He said everyone's winging it. No one's quite knowing where to go and how to do it. What's something that you guys have learned? Barry, maybe we can start with you. Leading through an uncertain time. I know you lead a team at Smith & Nephew. You report to a boss, and yet you got guys that report to you. What's it like leading in the season of uncertainty?
Yeah, Dubs, 100%. It's very, very challenging because we don't know what tomorrow holds. One thing I'm trying to really get across to people that but it's not okay to be and I think that's the critical. Yeah, we have to be clear today of what we have to do because we don't know what tomorrow holds. But let's be clear of today, and at least if we're clear on today, our communication's good, everyone's pulling in the right direction, in the same direction, then we're moving forward. But it's a, you know, I mean, I deal a lot with private hospital groups, and it's a challenging time. I mean, you know, lots of questions are asked and no one can give you an answer. And but you sometimes just have to take a deep breath and say, okay, what do I have control over? You know, it's that age-old rule of thumb. Take hold of your controllables, make sure that you are clear about your controllables, living in your reality and working your controllables to the best of your ability. And that's really all we can do.
Brilliant. So communication, live in today and control what you can. So good. Ed, for yourself?
Yeah, Dubs, it's I mean, Barry's hit the nail on the head, but you know, there's one lesson that I learned in rugby as a player, and it was actually in a team that Jake White coached us, and he said to us, he always taught us, he said, never pass the pressure down. You know, and I think if you lead an organization, as tough as it is sometimes, you can't pass the pressure down, you know, because you actually just snowballing the anxiety, snowballing the. I think that's why sometimes it's tough to be at the top. You know, the chairman of our board, he always says, like, guys, now it's time to put your hard hats on and just see this through, you know. And sometimes it's that simple. But, you know, when you're a Christian and you've got faith, and I think Bill spoke to it last week, he said faith doesn't deny the reality of fear. You know, so even though this makes us scared and this is unsettling and it actually, you know, throws us off course a little bit, you know, faith doesn't deny the reality of that fear, but it looks at a different reality than the one driven through fear, you know. So we'll get through this thing. And that's what I said to, you know, the first meeting I had when lockdown started, I actually called, like, it was the first time that some of us ever got onto Zoom. And I said to him, listen, now we've got to fast forward a year from now, 18 months from now, because this thing will pass. It will pass. Yeah. But the decisions we make now and the way we treat each other now is going to define the reality. So we've got to see what we want 18 months from now to look like and reverse engineer to today and make sure that the way we treat each other and the way we speak to each other and the decisions we make will shape that 18-month future that we want, you know. And I think I've got an unbelievable team, and you know, and on the admin side and also on the field, and I think they've really stepped up, and it's been actually such a positive thing, you know. There was a 21-day window where players could leave their contracts, and you know, we had one player leaving, and other teams had so many. So I think that's just the fruit of the seed that was sown, you know, and the way we treat each other, because we've got to fast forward to where we want to be in a crisis and then reverse engineer to the present and then make those decisions to go forward. So I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that statement. If you are a business guy or a leader of any organization watching, I love the statement, don't pass the pressure down. I think so often we, as leaders of organizations, aren't aware that we're actually passing pressure down to the rest of our staff team, rest of our teams, whatever that might look like. So write that one down, take it into your business tomorrow morning. Don't pass the pressure down, or just be aware if you are passing pressure down. Actually help your team thrive through that. Put your hard hats on and keep pioneering. That is brilliant. Absolutely love it. So, a miracle in itself that, or testimony, I suppose, that only one player, one contract challenge, and you say other franchises have had a few more, which is incredible, and testimony to what you guys have built in the Sharks. And then also just, I know you've got let's just go with the faith element. There's a bunch of guys in your team that are believers, love God, How have you built it? I always find it so fascinating because you often hear guys going, "Hey, I'm going to work Monday morning and I can't actually express my faith, or I'm too shy to, or I'm too nervous to." And it's always inspiring to see professional sports teams that are so open about Jesus, so open about talking about their faith and about God. How have you built or shaped some of that? I know, Barry, you would have played an influential role in a lot of the younger guys' lives and some of the guys in the squad at the moment, just guys that you've connected with. And we've seen loads of them actually come through church at different seasons. But how have you engineered or built such a faith environment within that squad? Is that something you've pursued or pioneered, or is it something that's just naturally sort of developed over time?
Who's that? Who do you want to ask that?
I think you go first, Ed, and then Paris, you can jump in the back end if that's all right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah.
Dubs, yeah. So what I try and drive at the Sharks is inclusivity. You know, so if you drive an inclusive environment, you can't drive a religion. So I'm Christian and I'm proud to be Christian, and I hope people can see it in my life. You know, and I make mistakes, but you know that's also part of. But you know, within an inclusive environment, the day you feel you can't be yourself, that environment's not inclusive anymore. You know, and I think we create a platform for guys to live out their religion. You know, and I mean, we've got one or two Muslim players in our squad, especially in the juniors teams. But they just as important than the Christian boys, you know. And inclusivity drives, and we create a platform, and that takes all the guilt, and you know, because a lot of players feel like as soon as they come out as a Christian and they make a mistake or they lose their cool on the field, they're going to get judged, you know, or they speed and they're on the car, they're going to get judged. And I think if you take the judgment and the guilt away, you know, in an inclusive environment, people can be who they are, and you can actually enforce that. And and obviously, like our culture at the Sharks is a culture that's driven by Christian principles, you know, or faith principles, and I think that attracts a certain player. So you know, and we're proud of it. We're not afraid of that, or ashamed of that. And I think we want to build on that. But in our environment, you can. If you're positive and you want to build towards it and you've got the skill set required, you're welcome here, you know, if you fit into the culture.
That's brilliant. So you create a faith environment, yet everyone's welcome. I think that's obviously key. Paris?
I tell you, Dubs, you know what the beauty is with the Sharks? So, it has been involved in a administrative role there probably since, I don't know, Ed, probably 2007. Is that right? 2008, 2007?
2013, I actually came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the reality is there's a young stalwart that walks the corridors of the Sharks Kings Park Stadium that has been consistent in a faith space when we're speaking about Christianity per se. So, and that's our young brother, Jimmy Wright. So Jimmy Wright has laid foundations there over the years that, you know, I come in now and lead a space around culture and mind skills. And he's laid the foundation. So I'm reaping the benefit of what he's sowed. And he's consistently done that day in, day out. That doesn't change in what he does. And I think that for me, you know, is just such a faith story. It's such a God story, because regardless of what's happening in that stadium, and listen, the Sharks have had some tough times over the last few years at various levels. And regardless of what those times have presented, Jim's been faithful and consistent. And with that, it makes it a lot easier for me to step in and say, hey guys, you know, let's start an engaged group. Let's call it Dunamis, and let's start meeting on a Friday morning. And you get a bunch of guys that stick up their hand and say, yes, please. And let me tell you something. There's some young rugby players at the Sharks, but there's some very mature Christians in that space. And when I say that, I mean young guys that are walking closely with God, that have a clear understanding of where God fits in their life. And that's right at the top. So, you know, it's a healthy space because, again, we've spoken about it over the last few weeks. It's because the seed's been sown. The seed's been sown and it's been watered daily. Day in, day out, it's been watered. So, yeah, you know, that kind of scenario makes life a lot easier for for anyone else stepping into that space.
Yeah, that's brilliant, sir.
Yeah. And Dubs, just on this point there, I mean, I think Bill summed it up so nicely last week when he said, our seed is our time, treasure, and our talent, you know. And if you sow the seed at the right time, and I think Jimmy Wright's been an absolute blessing to the Sharks. I despised him when I was a player because he was the strength and conditioning coach. So he was at my factory and like I had to do extra fitness. And like my buddies won't see that because buddies doesn't have the same challenges I have in fitness and physical and stuff. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
Barry's sentiments there that the seed was sown through key people that God placed in that organization. Those people stood the test of time and the tough times, because there has been tough times in the Sharks, you know. But now today, I think I'm lucky because I can reap the rewards of the guys like Jimmy and the Barrys that are involved and further sowing the seeds into the right ground, you know.
That's amazing. How long has Jimmy been with the Sharks?
When I arrived in 2000 to play, he was already there.
No way, he's been there over 20 years.
Yeah. So I always joked and said the reason I came back to the Sharks was to fire him. But because they can play and he scored me on a field, but he's human to live with that.
He's brilliant.
I reckon if that day ever came, he'd make you do push-ups.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
Yes, that's so good. So, Barry, you mentioned the mind space, and for me, just watching from the outside, I know you've done a bit of work with our staff team, but I've watched you with some guys. I mean, that's definitely your game. So the mental health side, it's become a massive subject in recent weeks. So I wanted to ask you two things. Maybe you can touch on them both now. One is, what does a strong mind look like? And how do you, who are you leading into, who are you listening to, who are you drawing? Because I know the leadership agility space, to stay strong-minded yet still be agile. What does that look like? And who are some voices that you're listening to that are help shaping some of that thought process?
Yeah, it's just the first question is a great question, W. And you know, what is mental skills? What is mental health? What I've realized, and I've actually just realized this recently, Dubs, I've spent this lockdown really doing a lot of introspection and self-study and going down the route of trying to understand a little bit more of what it looks like to lead and work in a space of mind skills as opposed to know about a space or leadership. You know, so we can often read about stuff, but we don't implement it. So in this journey, I've realized that for you to be mentally strong and mentally healthy, you have to be able to be real. You have to be realistic. You have to understand where you're at. And even more importantly, you have to know where you've come from. So you have to have a very clear idea of what your identity is. Once you know that, then you can move forward from there. You know, the other thing is we talk about fear, we talk about tolerance, resilience, anxiety, confidence, all these kind of words that we continuously use around high-performing individuals, and they're all mind skills. And this is what we don't often realize. They're actually a muscle that we have to train. So when things are actually, funny enough, listened to a podcast this morning. A guy's name's David Galbraith. He's done quite a lot of work with different Kiwi sports. And he said that someone asked him a question about potential. How do you realize your potential? And he said, you only ever realize your potential when you're in a crisis. So, you know, relating this back to rugby, Ed would have been in this situation as well. You play a game where you win by 60 points. You don't realize your potential. You never realize your potential in that space. You play a game like a few years ago, the Sharks went to Crusaders. They beat the Crusaders at Christchurch with 13 players. Let me tell you something. We realized some potential in that space. We started seeing potential in players, in management, in doctors, in physios, in CEOs, all this kind of thing. So we start realizing what our potential is, what our strength of mind is, what our health of mind is when we're in a tough situation. those. So for a guy like Ed as the CEO, it's about stepping in to make tough calls,
Sure.
to make tough decisions. Because, hey, you're not getting from
Oh, Barry, we lost you there, but are you there?
Performing. You got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got. Yeah, sorry, buddy. Why don't you just repeat that? We lost you there for a second.
Where did you get me to?
Don't remember. Babe.
No, you weren't listening. That's okay, Dave. Yeah, no, St. John.
30.
Either.
Yeah, look, but I'm ADD, so I'm ready on the next question. But the 13 men is Christchurch and how we realize potential in crisis, and not only in the team, but in the management team, in the CEO.
100%. So, like I say, so in a nutshell, is when you have to do the hard yards is when you realize your potential. So, yeah, I guess we just have to get better at handling the tough situations, because it's the tough situations that make the easy situations a holiday, if that makes sense. Where have I been leaning in? Gee, Stubbs, I've done a lot of listening this lockdown, a lot of listening, a lot of reading. I've spent quite a bit of time on Zoom chats with guys all over the world, particularly from New Zealand. So New Zealand have had in place this mental skills role for a number of years. A guy by the name of I forget his surname, Eric. You might Ed might know. He's been a mental skills coach for the All Blacks for 15 years. 15 years. They've had someone in place that deals with players' anxieties, fears, understanding what's coming after rugby, understanding that to get better doesn't mean just to go practice your strengths. It means to go practice your strengths with a specific outcome attached to it. So it's like, we often hear a guy's a good kicker, go practice your kicking. Yeah, that's good, because you'll be able to kick the same as you before you started. But if you practice your kicking, aiming only at the right pole, and see if you can get the right pole 10 out of 10 wherever you are on the field, that's now practicing your strengths. So yeah, I've been listening to a lot of that kind of voice. I've actually been listening to a lot of Caroline Leaf's work again, and just understanding the neuroscience behind emotions, around the brain and performance. Yeah, and then I've been spending, funny enough, the crazy thing is I've been spending quite a lot of time on the phone and on Zoom rooms with a lot of players. And I actually learn so much from these guys, because, they ask me questions that I can't answer very often. And, I was never high grade, never a PhD student. But I could definitely go and research something. I'm like a bull terrier. So, that engagement has taken me out to go and learn, to come back with some kind of question or answer or solution.
That's so good.
So yeah, that's been sort of where I've been pressing into.
I actually love that mindset, though, that when you get asked a question, I think there's two ways you can respond. You either get disappointed and despondent and move on, or you go back and find an answer. And I think if we could all live with a mindset of going, hey, I get challenged by questions and then I go find answers, it's a powerful way to live. Ed, you're a visionary. I know you've implemented some incredible stuff at the Shark Tank recently. There's the water slides, and there's a crash, and there's a whole lot of stuff that you've brought in just to give it a real family atmosphere and a family feel. What keeps you inspired as a visionary? How do you keep looking for new ideas and new vision for your organization?
That is actually very, very simple. Like, I live by the motto that you don't know what you don't know, and I think if you do that and you actually, if you really believe that, then you become teachable. And then you got to look for answers in places where normally you would just brush over because you think you know everything. So for me, I love learning. I love pushing the boundary. I'll never forget when, because I was very lucky. The CEO before me at the Sharks was Gary Tyson, and he's one of the best human beings that I've ever met. Such an unbelievable guy, and I just learned so much on so many different levels from him. But I must admit that the one day when he was stumped was when I told him that I want to build a swimming pool in the stadium.
Yeah.
I think it was quite quick. Then I had to explain to him that that's only stage 1, because stage 2 is another swimming pool, and that's on the other side with super tubes. And he almost like, he didn't know how to take me. But I think it's just like I'm actually busy with another little study now on generational bias in consumer behavior. So like you often see now in a household, you'll have a teenager, you'll have a millennial, which is us, and a lot of us look after our parents, so you've got 3-4 generations in a house. So like, how do you market into the thing? How do you at the shop cater for 4 generations in one house,
Sure. And brilliant.
And it just all comes back to consumer behavior. So you need to be able to speak to everyone at their level. And I think that's actually probably the only study that I've done that actually really excites me, because it's like, it's such typical things, and it's an industry that goes so quickly, But it's just we will keep on pushing the boundaries, because we all accept that we don't know what we don't know, and just because we live by that motto, we'll go and look for what people want, what's out there, and what's trending, and we'll bring it home to the Shark Tank for people to enjoy.
Yes, that's brilliant. So we don't know what we don't know, so we'll just keep moving and pioneering. I also love that generational study as to how do you actually market to those consumers of a whole family, which is absolutely brilliant.
Can I go?
We are running out of time.
I just want to go 10 seconds to what Barry said about mental health. For me, the big key to unlock mental health in sportsmen is to encourage vulnerability. Because everything in what we do as a rugby player is bravado, is ego. Because as soon as we have a culture that protects a player and we encourage vulnerability, then we can unlock a pathway to make sure that we actually deal with that mental health issue. And I think that's where Buddies is unbelievably good, because these rugby players, they get guys promising them stuff 10 a day for 365 days. And Buddies have respect, and I think that's, if they feel that they can be vulnerable with him, and that's unlocking a pathway. And I think that's huge credit to him, like he's done an unbelievable job.
Barry's you legend, bro. So I know you've done something.
Thank you.
The reality is you've done some incredible stuff, not only with the Sharks guys, but you've helped our team out. There's loads of guys that you've helped journey through stuff and just help unlock stuff. I think you always ask great questions, and you're always just willing to be a part of it. I love the way that you lead and mentor, especially the younger guys.
Thanks,
especially in the Sharks Academy or in the under-19, under-21 sides. It's always been incredible to watch the younger guys you've brought through and speak life into and encourage. And that's why we call you the coach, Barry's. You're more than just a mate. You're a coach.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Pleasure.
I love it.
Pleasure. I can see you glowing now. You're looking excited. It's a pleasure. Just before we wrap up, Ed, you were saying that the team are back in training tomorrow. I wanted to pick your brain just a little bit. How are the guys feeling? What does it look like? I'm obviously a big football fan, so I've been watching Europe and the Premier League kicking off in a couple of weeks' time. But I know Germany are back playing football. I know New Zealand are just about to kick off their Super Rugby locally. Team are back, non-contact, social distancing for a couple of weeks, getting conditioned, and then contact. And then you say in the near future we could be seeing some games behind closed doors. How's the team feeling? And also from that mental health awareness, are the guys, how are they all doing, and what does it look like?
Yeah, that's the guys are unbelievably excited to just have this breakthrough of being able to go back to training. For 8 weeks now, or more than 8 weeks, we haven't had competition, so there will be like a little break up in the. So we probably estimate that we're 6 weeks away from being competition ready. So 6 to 8 weeks. So half of that will be conditioning. So a conditioning block where the boys will need to get their bodies conditioned to fitness and running blocks and those type of ugly things that I hated. And then there'll be like a rugby block. So we're hoping that we'll be back on the field middle July till between the middle of July and the start of August. And then it'll be. But I think for us, it's just from a commercial point of view that it'll just about broadcasting, advertising, and sponsorship rights again. Which are usually important for us as an organisation. So we're really very excited and happy, and I think the boys are excited because like when Super Rugby got called off, we were top of Super Rugby log, and I think these boys, when no one gave them a chance, I mean, they were shooting the lights out, and these youngsters were playing with enthusiasm, not scared of anything. So I feel they got robbed, and I think the public got robbed seeing where these guys could have gone. So we're excited to get going, but I think there's a tough 6 to 8 weeks ahead of these boys.
That's exciting, eh? So 6 to 8 weeks to go. Lucky you won't be training. Doing a bit of conditioning with the boys there. So Jimmy's going to come into his own for the next 4 weeks. He's just going to be smiling from ear to ear. Getting the guys nice and fit and excited.
100%.
All right. One passing shot as we wrap up. Barry's, maybe you can start for us. You can encourage us with one thought. I know even one question. What have you guys learned through sport that we can take into everyday life?
Sure. Not to take
question?
yourself too seriously, Dubsy. Yeah, it's a big question, but I think what I learned in sport, and again, I didn't quite reach the heights of Ed and the likes, but what I learned, in fact, I didn't learn it at the time, I learned it afterwards, was that don't take yourself too seriously. Because at the end of the day, tomorrow's another game. The next day is another game. Tomorrow's another training session. And what happened on the field yesterday won't be remembered forever. And, old John Wooden, NBA coach, said something quite remarkable. He said to his players, he'd say this before the game, he would say to his players, boys, win or lose, of your saying, be humble in victory and be modest in defeat. Don't take it too seriously. Just make sure that you stay true to yourself and your principles and your values and whatever. We are in a tough time. Ed said it. We will prevail. We will come through this.
Yeah.
Just take a deep breath. Don't take yourself too seriously and keep being honest to yourself.
Brilliant. That's so helpful, man.
Yeah, Dubs, I think the most important thing is because sometimes when we're in a situation and in a season, like a specific season of our lives, we stare into the immediate reality, and we miss the purpose, and I think what's important that I've found out is within this pandemic, there's still purpose and promise. There's huge promise at the end of this thing. But if you get taken down now, and often, I chat to my boys about this, my kids, not the boys at the Sharks. There's like the things you worry about now. Only when that's why it used to irritate me when people say, "Yeah, but one day when you're older, you'll understand." But now I understand because the things that scared me and those moments in life where I felt like tomorrow will never come and tomorrow is not going to happen and how am I going to get through this, You get through these moments, and I think that's where faith comes into play. You've got to keep faith. You got to still, God, the Holy Spirit will guide you into a direction to give you wisdom to make those right decisions. But faith will take you through those fear moments, and I think we've now got to push through the fear moment because the fear will only ruin your day. It'll only take away joy and the purpose that God's got in store for you. And I think let's not give COVID-19 the pleasure of ruining our day. Like it's already ruined a lot of stuff for us. But we've got the power that God's given faith through the Holy Spirit in our lives that we can actually go through this thing. And I think that's what we need to do. We've got to, in really tough times, we've got to stay positive.
That's brilliant.
100%.
Guys, just take a moment to thank you guys so much for your time on a Sunday evening. I know tomorrow's an early start for you guys as you head back into offices and get onto your sales calls and meetings. But love that final wrap-up thought. Don't take yourself too seriously, and faith will get you through these fearful moments. Don't let COVID-19 rob you of today. So thank you so much, guys. So grateful for both of you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dubs.
Thanks, buddies.
Hey, Ed, have a good evening there, my mate. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Hey, so good to see you guys. I'm going to take a moment just to pray for us and head out into the week, and then we'll wrap up Sunday Night Live. It's been an incredible evening. So, Father God, so grateful for moments like this where we can chat to some incredible voices, some incredible leaders, some guys leading incredible organizations, yet still so faithful and excited and encouraged by what you're doing. Thank you, Jesus, for your Holy Spirit that leads us through these moments, that guides us through these seasons. Thank you for the pearls of wisdom that have landed in people's laps tonight. And I pray, God, that there would be these moments that would speak life into every single person, every single viewer watching tonight. And I pray this week that you would be with them, that you wouldn't let fear rob them of anything, but they would move forward in faith. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Have an amazing evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.